And we're live, folks. Welcome back to the dev stream. I'm here today with my coworker Fernando. I can't even remember your last name because I'm always used to your Slack or Twitter handle. I've drawn a complete blank for your last name. I'm like it's F Doxy. Uh,
Yeah, it's Valverde,
um,
but yeah, it's all right.
yeah,
Same
that's
as
it. Valverde. Yeah, all
mm,
right. Yeah. Yeah. I've only worked with you for a while, but I have no idea what your name is. Yeah.
happens.
My name is Nick Taylor. I'm a senior software engineer here at Forem, and I'm here with my coworker Fernando Valverde. I'll let him give himself an intro, uh, and then we'll get into what we're going to talk about today.
Cool,
Yeah,
cool.
there appears to be an
Um,
echo. Hold on a sec.
hmm, maybe it's my mic giving you a little feedback there. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's me when I have it on. I'm not sure why. I upgraded to a beta version of my software. Maybe it's that for the AI filtering. Give me 1 second. Check. I gotta check it out.
Sure,
All right.
sure.
Any echo now? Man, where's this echo coming from? This is
Cool.
pretty annoying. It's not the software.
Okay, give it another try.
Hello?
Give it another try.
Yep, testing. Oh, okay, your speaker or something is doing it? I don't hear any echo
Still
now.
there?
Oh, now I hear
Yeah,
it.
it's mine. Let me see. How about now?
Testing, testing. Yeah,
Better?
seems to be okay. I think we all
Okay,
good,
okay.
Christina? All right, let me put my AI software back on then. Trust the robots to filter out my noise. There we go. All right,
Sweet.
it's all
Well,
good because something always goes wrong technically. We are gonna look like professionals one day when we stream, but for now, I guess we're just it's YOLO mode always for us. All right, so
absolutely.
let's back up again. So I'm here with my coworker Fernando Valverde, and can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what your role is at Forum?
Sure. I am a software developer. I'm based in Costa Rica, and yeah, it's been a few years since I've been a mobile developer. Turns out that I also like a little backend here and there, so I learned Ruby on Rails, and that was a lot of fun. And now it's been a few months, maybe 8 months, somewhere around that, since I joined Dev, now Forum, and it's been quite a ride. It's been cool. Here at Forum, I have been like focused a little on mobile, but also like we've been going back and forth with um, the forum itself, web repo, and everything that goes into like this big shift that has like come from dev and releasing forum into the world.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, we've been a little busy. Yeah, and I'll just remind folks because I forgot to mention it when I was echoing there. So for those not familiar, Forum is the software that powers Dev, and so we're talking today with Fernando, and we're gonna kind of do a bit of a deep dive into all things mobile in regards to Forum. So uh, I guess with that. I guess I wonder if you could give, to the best of your knowledge, because I know you didn't start the project. I think Ben Halpern, who's one of the co-founders and the original creator of Dev, he's the one that started the repo, I believe, for the mobile stuff.
yeah. Can you see the repo here? Okay,
Yeah, yeah, it just popped up.
cool. Yeah, actually, it's been a while. And this project started off, yeah, way back before I joined the team. And there's two repos, meaning we have two apps, one for iOS and one for Android.
Okay.
And yeah, basically, um, yeah, they are an interesting approach. This is something I learned when I came in, and I actually loved it. To me, it feels like a, bold move to do things a little differently. And yeah, the project is very much focused into like giving the best experience possible on the mobile world, but like very much relying in like the web development because like the Forem team is very web focused and like we can do one thing and do it good, well, and like
Yeah.
basically, yeah, both repos, if you have learned about them and you know the apps and you use them, not a lot of people know them because they're not maybe the forefront of the project, but slowly we're getting there. We're slowly putting like effort into them and getting them into a better shape. Uh, Especially with the forum shift of mind, we have like taken a little bit of a step back and getting into the architecture of it, and I think there's a lot of promising stuff coming soon. But yeah.
Yeah, and I guess to touch on that, I'm kind of multitasking a bit. Christina isn't with us today, but she's helping out in the chat. But I'm just saying hello to somebody. But what I was gonna say, just what you touched on, in terms of we're web focused, and I think part of that is related to the fact that we're building out communities, and the majority of what we put out is content. So uh,
Mhm.
I think that that's the main reason why a lot of focus was on. We'll get into all these pieces because I've never done any native mobile development myself, so I probably have tons of questions for you. But from what I've understood, like the original project, we focus on what's called a web view, which is, think of it like a framed web page within the iOS and native Android applications. That's what I've understood basically.
Yes, I got this couple of pictures here from a internal conversation we had. So I love diagrams. Like to me, if we talk about it with a diagram, everyone will understand. At least
Yeah.
I will. So yeah, in the native world, we have this web view. So basically, like let's say on iOS, it's called WK Web View. It's the framework that we rely on.
Okay.
That's openly available. So actually, Apple has a little bit of a closed ecosystem, nothing new. But basically, even if you have Chrome or Firefox in your iPhone, you or your iPad, you will have a WK Web View working in
Okay.
there. So they don't allow for like lower deep level um, web like technologies into their ecosystem. So
Okay.
basically the same APIs that we use, it's of course to a way deeper extent and more developed world like Chrome, the Chrome browser or the Firefox browser, Opera or anything.
Okay.
They rely on the web view. So yeah. Um
So just to
Basically,
touch on
yeah.
that,
Mhm.
so what you mean is like literally if I'm on my iPhone with Chrome or the new Edge or Firefox, I'm essentially still running Safari under the hood. Is I don't want to
Yeah,
say
it's what
Safari, but like the engine that runs Safari is the
yeah,
same engine that runs all the other browsers.
exactly. It's a WebKit project. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I believe I'm not sure if it's open source, but they are out there and it's the same project that runs Safari on your Mac OS and a little bit
Okay.
of course ported differently, but yeah, that's basically the gist of it. So in a sense, we if we make the website the dev website, the forum, any forum instance better, and if it performs well, we use
Yep.
a lot of caching, we use a lot of like so much stuff that makes the web experience good, that if we show it within a web view in your app, it's almost like you're getting the same good experience, but you just sprinkle some nice things here and there and make it like feel a
Okay.
little more native.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
No,
in
gotcha.
it, in it, yeah, in its small, quick sense, it's basically here you can see like a post, so everything is within the web view. So you get some native controls, but this is Android, so you don't have some native controls. We'll see it a little later, but it's basically just the web view here. And when of course you have our site and you go into like a link, external link, we kind of present it like modally. So
Okay.
you get that experience a little bit, but um yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
I'm just pulling
do you
up
have any questions or
oh yeah, no, I definitely have tons of questions. I'm just pulling up I'm gonna paste it in the chat. There's Ben Halpern, as I mentioned, the co-founder of Forem. He I am paying attention to. I'm just looking at my other screen to type this in. But he wrote a post a while ago about making Forem fast. So I'm just popping that in the chat for folks to check out. Things have changed, but yeah, I guess we can talk we can talk a little bit about the caching a bit first, and then we can dive into all things mobile that consume these things.
yeah.
Things. Just let me paste this in. Okay. All right, there we go. Yeah, so maybe you can fill in some of the holes for me because I haven't done that much Rails, but it's not even really a Rails thing per se. It's just general caching strategies for web. So uh, there's the most notable I can think of, which is service workers, which we have. So uh, if folks have ever noticed, like sometimes when we're redeploying dev, things will be slow for a bit sometimes just because things are just getting updated, but you'll see the shell of the application. So like the sidebar, the top, and I think the right panel too. They load instantly, and that's pulled from the service worker cache. That's one thing. We use other stuff like just if we're talking in the web browser client for a sec, like local storage for certain things, like some non some non-secure user information, stuff like that. And then on the back end, in terms of like just general web stuff, we could be serving up headers to say don't go fetch the page again because we already have it. And then there's the whole, from what I've understood, we have Redis for caching as well, which does entire pages and also fragments of pages, from what I'm aware of. And then the the one that eludes me a bit is I kind of have an idea of it, but I still have to dig into this. But it's the edge caching, uh,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
I don't
in
know
a
if you
general
can
sense,
explain that a
that's
bit. Do you know any
yeah,
bit
that's
like
I don't know the nitty-gritty of the very detailed. Yeah, that's basically the headers when you request a page and you have already fetched it once, or like you're hitting the cache. So
okay,
something that's very special in this case for our product in general is that we serve a lot of static content. Like we serve blog posts, we serve stuff like this that doesn't change often, that gets cached on the edge. And by, well, in this case we have used Fastly, but we're using a lot of different um, tools now that we're making this transition. But
yeah,
yeah, in a way, let's say if you're on Montreal and like we have someone's fetched the latest post, the hottest post of the week, someone's already read it. For example, Fastly has an edge cache
okay,
that will have serve your request faster than someone from Europe or someone from Asia.
okay,
So that is like a little bit of a Russian doll caching strategy where, well, not exactly. In the Rails world, it's a little bit different. But anyways, like
okay,
there's a lot of moving parts that make a little difference, and they all add up into a great experience. At least that was what we strive for.
Yeah. No, it's something I'm not just saying because I work there, but I hear it from people often that, hey man, dev loads really fast, you know? And it's true, like a lot of the pages are just like super snappy, and it's because of all these caching strategies and stuff. And there's I gotta I'll try and find the post. I don't know if how accessible how much access Christina has to a computer right now, but there's a post Ben had talked about. It was kind of like a post mortem of the April Fool's joke we did one year, where we tried to change the whole site to Comics OMS, and by doing that, it caused the entire site to recache, I believe, and it just ended up taking a long time. And long story short, the April Fool's joke turned into a bit of a nightmare slash lesson learned. But it was great that there was a post about it. I'll find it later on if Christina doesn't find it. But yeah. So okay, so that's all the web stuff. So uh, I'm really curious about just I guess a bunch of things like how we're set up to do development, like what the projects look like, uh, you know, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty much that, I guess. Because like, and also to give people another thing that we aren't doing is we use Preact in the front end, but we're not doing something like, there's no such thing as Preact native, but I guess you could technically have Preact in the web and use React native. But that's not something we decided to do. Like we're focusing on the web views, like you were saying, and then the rest is all native. So I guess we could probably, maybe let's start off with like the iOS experience, and then maybe we could move to the Android experience after, and just kind of explain like, and then we'll get into. I'm going on a few tangents here, but like, there's also the new initiative, which is because we're Forem now. We have a Forem app in place as well, which is a whole other thing. But let's start off with like iOS, just a brain dump of iOS from you, basically.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And they're very, very similar. In a general sense, like the work is a native app. Like we're basically just working with a native app, but the difference comes in let me put this one here. This is the app. Basically,
Yeah.
when you code on native iOS, you use Xcode, and you can tell it's a very, very small app. Like there's not
Okay.
much in here. You basically have two views, and that's all. Like they're all. This right here is basically the same thing you see
Okay.
in this small diagram that we had here. So
Yeah.
all the content is managed by this one, which is our own WK WebView implementation. And then whenever someone wants to browse an external site, we just present it to them like, hey, this is outside our app, but here you go.
Okay.
Um, in a
And
general
it's
sense, that's it. Like just a view controller and a browser view controller.
okay.
Again, you can stop me and ask anything you want, but we're in the middle of this shift. So the project actually has this open PR that it's open for a while. It's been open for a while, but
Okay.
that's because we have taken also this approach of okay, we are thinking a little bit of big picture. We want to have basically any app that can interact with any forum. This has not been like big news, or we're not announcing it like very loudly because it's like a work in progress. We're getting there.
Okay.
Android is still not there. We're getting there, but um, I want to get at least this area. We're working on a native video player. So a few of the native things that we have
Yeah.
are the podcast player and the video
Okay.
player coming soon. Um, so uh, that also has to do with how much access we get to the APIs coming from the web view. Basically, Apple has certain capabilities. They call it capabilities, which in the end also turns into what permissions, what stuff you get access to when you install your app.
Okay.
So, for example, if you want to play audio in the background, like let's say Spotify or Apple Podcast app or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you want to lock your screen and continue playing your phone, your audio, whatever, whether it's music or a podcast or anything, um, you need these capabilities. You need to make these requests,
Okay.
and um, so this is where the web view comes in short, and this is a little touched like a little bit here in the ethos. I always rely on this because I think it's really like a great on point explanation.
Okay.
Basically, our main core is serving the content, but if we can enhance the experience a little better, like bridging that gap of what we cannot do on the web, do it natively, because then we can make the experience better. But that's like a little special thing. Um, in Android and in iOS, you can make bridge. We can make a bridge. Let's say have a conversation between the native Swift and the JavaScript that's running inside the web view. So that's
Okay.
where we get a communication, like a channel. It's a bridge, and that's where we get to play around and do some cool stuff like that.
Okay.
Um,
Can I stop you there for one
yeah,
sec?
yeah.
This is I understand the concept of the bridge, but uh, it's a way to communicate between the native and the web world. It can you kind of maybe break that down a bit, how that works to some degree? Like, I mean, I understand, like, I'm on the web page and I imagine the web view is listening for events and then it must pass it on or something like that. Uh,
Yes, that is an API that's very low level in the native area. So let's say this whole thing is working on Swift. So we are on a
okay.
native app. We render a view, which is just a web view, and we tell the web view just browse dev2, for example.
Okay.
So um, from the JavaScript side, you can you can say, depending on if you are on iOS, on Android, it works differently because it's different frameworks. Like we talked, iOS opens their APIs via the WebKit project. So they're
Okay.
called message handlers on the WebKit project. So
Gotcha.
message handlers, um, you're just on JavaScript, and I can look it up real quick actually. Mm, this is called podcast. Oh, this is not the one. Mm.
Just
It's
answer here.
basically this. You call the window WebKit message handlers and you name your message handler and then you post a
Okay.
message. So
Okay. So
this,
it's just a
yeah,
event. It's just a evented system, basically.
exactly.
Okay.
I'm gonna move over to here. In the message handler, we have something called in the native world, we have the WK script message handler. So this is the implementation that listens to those messages.
Okay.
So the JavaScript runtime is live running in the native app, and we have our shell, which is the native app that's listening to these messages. So there's this bridge. So basically, JavaScript posts messages, and
Okay.
then on the native side, we react to those messages. And then the other way around, where we talk into the JavaScript context, is we can evaluate JavaScript from the the shell native world. We can tell the web view from outside, from our native code, we can tell execute this JavaScript, and we pass in the JavaScript.
Okay. And
So
I,
that's
and
how
I
we talked.
guess okay.
Mhm.
And I guess there's obviously some kind of security model around that.
Yeah.
just so there's no bad actors. Um,
Yes, this is like the touchiest topic because we want more power, more access. But if you open the APIs completely, you run into some weird areas where someone can take advantage of that.
yeah.
That is actually something that Apple has been very restrictive. Apple does not allow, well, up to iOS 14, I believe that it had like very poor support for service workers.
Okay.
So if you like, we had to disable our service workers for iOS for a
Okay, we did
while.
end up doing that because I remember there was an issue open where the CPU was going through the roof.
Yeah, that, and it's also not it doesn't like the entire API is not supported, so it's
Okay.
better off just like to like cut it off and say no. But iOS 14, they're opening that this came out, I believe, in the most recent WWDC, the Apple event. They
Yeah.
mentioned, okay, we're gonna support service workers and in general, but the thing is, you have to make a capability for that. So you have to beforehand say this web view, this WK web view will only
Yeah.
work with this URL. So let's say our app is dev2. If we release our app with, it's called app domains or app it's a capability. So you tell them we build the app, we send it to the app store, and it in the details configurations it says this web view will work with dev2.
Okay.
It will be a secure area, and we will get the support of uh, service workers and some other APIs that are currently restricted.
Okay.
And yeah, 100% it has to do, sorry, with security and stuff like that too, that you have to like be a little careful with that.
Okay. And that brings up another question, which, because I'm glad you
Mhm.
answered with that, because I was curious how deep linking worked in apps. So, like, uh, so deep linking, folks, for those who might not be aware, to the best of my understanding, is if your app has a web facing like site. If you
Mhm.
click on those links on like a mobile device, if you have the native application open, it knows that, like you were saying, this app domain's allowed, I guess. So this is a dev2 link, open it in the native app, and then from there the web view just loads up that URL, I guess, or like
Yes. In our case, it is a web view, but it can be, let's put the example of the GitHub app that's kind
okay.
of new. So if you, let's say, get an email, a notification, and you say this issue has just got comment activity, and you click
Yeah.
on that link, depending on whether you're on iOS or Android, there's different APIs and implementations. But
Okay. Yeah.
let's focus a little bit on the iOS for now. Apple has support for different things, but one of them is universal links. So you can open up the you're browsing a website and you can click on that little
Okay.
banner on top. There's lots of different ways, but I think it's mostly used with custom, what are they called? Custom domains or custom, no, protocols, something like
Okay.
that, where instead of HTTPS colon dash dash whatever, you use like dev colon. It's a custom protocol. So um,
Okay.
that will tell the phone, if you have the GitHub app installed, that will tell the phone, hey, open our app instead. So
Okay. Yeah.
there's different ways of doing it, and it varies on Android and iOS. But yeah, in
Okay.
our case, it would be simple in a way. It's always not simple, but
Yeah. I guess because we're just
you're
loading the URL in the web view, so there's no like
yeah.
dissecting of the URL to figure out how to show it in a native view.
Mm,
Or, well, I mean, the web view is a
yeah.
native view, but I mean, like in
Mm,
like if we were loading, like if for some reason we decided to have no web views in our app, when somebody clicked on the link, I guess it could be something like we deconstruct the URL, we know it's a post, then we make some request to say go get the post with this ID, and then render it in some
yeah.
native widget. Uh, okay.
Yeah. On a native app, this is literally the function that you call.
Okay.
This is called the app delegate, and again, this is iOS world, Android. manages a little different, but it's in a way it's the same way. It's the same thing. Apps have a life cycle. So your app is either like not running or it's running in a state. It's in foreground, background, it's in somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
That is the thing. And these functions, these calls that you define in the app delegate allow you to react to certain things. So the OS says you're going to open the app and we're sending this metadata. So the metadata is the URL. So
Yeah.
we're basically, when we open the app via this call, it means that someone clicked on a link and wants the app to open a certain thing. So GitHub would manage it differently because GitHub is 100% or feels 100% native,
Yeah.
and then you would have to open native views that represent what the web is. So
Okay. I gotcha.
an issue lives within a repo, within a user or an organization, but in the native app on GitHub, you're opening a URL, but you're opening it using native views. In our sense, it's a little easier. You just load the URL.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
um,
this brings up
yeah,
another question. I'm probably gonna interrupt you a bunch of
yeah,
times with questions,
no
but
worries.
um, I've never done mobile app development myself, but I've read quite a bit like about, well, Apple's very closed, like you said, but also they restrict certain kinds of applications. So like, for example, if you're a web application, I'm curious, like in our case, like when we deploy changes, all our, like if we're not touching the iOS or Android app, but we're like, we just deployed a new feature in the website, how does that work with the licensing, or I don't know what the proper wording is, but I know like there was some stuff like with React Native at least where it's like you're deploying something new, but it's hot reloaded, so like there's no actual redeploy, not redeploying, but like resubmitting the application for like a new
Yeah.
version. So I'm curious about kind of all that.
That is in part a very big like consideration on what you want to use for your app. Like lots of
Okay.
apps are like 100% you got to go native. It's you want something in a certain way, you can do it that way.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely. The fact is that we're loading our website. So Apple in the past has been very, very hesitant and like against the web view approach
Okay.
because in a sense you're bypassing that um, review because they review your app. But you
Yeah.
can't make certain things different, but um, there's different levels because you can say we're changing the CSS in our website, and for example dev 2 we can make a style update and it will immediately work on the native apps. You don't have to go through review, wait 2 3 days, maybe more, maybe less,
Yeah.
um, and get the new app out there. If we are focusing on our web development, we can iterate faster in a lot of things and focus on one thing, which is delivering a great web experience, uh, like what's it called, experience, because it will work on a phone, it will work on a tablet, or it will work on a desktop. But
Yeah. For
yeah,
sure.
it's basically yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, and I guess on the flip side, I mean, we're gonna get to talking about Android too, but I'm curious how Android handles that same kind of scenario. Are they just kind of like it? I don't know how true this is, but from what the impression I've got is a lot of more spammy applications tend to end up in Android, and I'm wondering if that's just because they're just like put put whatever you want, and they just don't really. I don't want to say don't care, but they clearly have a different policy than Apple. So
It has changed through like the past few years. I think Google has made a big like shift in the recent years. It used to be like that, at least from my experience, but I think the review process now on Google is it is a review process, and you still have to just get through that review process. I
Okay.
don't think it's like really rough, and Apple is kind of pickier. Like that's true. And the recent Android releases have like bridged that gap that used to be like massive in the past. You
Okay.
used to basically have more access to APIs. Google has also made those changes. Like you need to request location permissions to get your location, and now I believe the recent Android release like makes it that users can say, no, I only want to give permission while I'm using the app, not like give you the
All the
key and
time.
you can use like a calculator app that's tracking your location in the background. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Stuff like
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah. Stuff like that makes sense. You can, yeah, sure. I'll give you permission, or I'll give the user the choice of making or not making the permission.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
I
think it's
definitely
gotten
want that
better.
calculator that tracks wherever I am. Um,
Yeah.
I was just gonna mention. Christina said we're getting a bit of echo every now and then. I don't know if I don't know. I can't remember what you did to stop it. I'm not noticing an echo
I
now, but it seems to be
yeah.
pretty good now, I think. But if she might mention it again. But okay, so that's kind of talking all things iOS. In terms of the Android side of things, it's similar as you mentioned, but I imagine there's some differences. Is it really just APIs, or what's the big difference, if any?
Let me show you. It's very very similar. Very very similar. The difference comes in the way the message is sent, at least in our bridging world that we want to bridge this, like the way you can see it right here. WebKit on iOS handles it in a certain way. We
Yeah.
send messages. On Android, we basically make function calls. And that
Okay.
makes it okay. We have to make a function call this way in Android world, but we have to post messages in WebKit world. So
Okay.
at least here we made the decision of making the function that you call in the Android world, we make
Yeah.
that function that just to make it receive a JSON, and basically you're just making that function receive messages. So in a way,
Okay.
it's the same approach, but the API is a little different. This Android bridge is just declared in the JavaScript runtime. It's a little bit of magic. In a sense, you're usually
Yeah.
just working with this and say, okay, I'm making this message and I'm expecting to, sorry, receive the message on the native world.
Yeah. I'm
So,
gonna post it in the chat. I've seen the code before.
mhm.
Like it's a I think it's like a singleton that's just called Android Bridge. Is that right? From what I remember.
Yes. Well, let me check. I can't remember where it was declared, but I think it's not even declared. You don't even
Okay.
declare it. It's just magically there, the
Oh, okay.
Android
Yeah.
bridge, but you declare it in the native world. So let's
Okay.
say you're in the app, you're building the Android native app, and you instantiate, never said that word out loud before, web view.
It's all good.
Yeah, you create this web view, and when you create the web view, you tell the web view, hey, I am declaring this class to be my bridge. And we just called it Android bridge. That's
Okay.
just our naming.
Okay, yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
it's
you
not an
can call
actual
it
file.
anything you
I've
want.
seen it in the code in the front end Android bridge. I think where I saw it was related to the copy paste
Oh yeah.
functionality. I think that's where I had seen it.
Uh-huh.
Um, okay, so so essentially on the Android side, it creates a global on the window object called Android Bridge that we just have access
Yeah.
to. Okay. No, that makes
Then
sense.
on the JavaScript world, basically we have to make a check. We have to make sure it exists, because when you're running on the web world, when you're running in JavaScript normal, you're in a browser, this Android bridge will not exist. It will be null,
Yeah.
nil, undefined. So we have this little class called Runtime. This was actually kudos to Michael Cole that suggested this approach, having
Okay.
a runtime class. And this is where we check, for example, we want to check, are we running in a native Android runtime? And this is what we do. We check the user agent. We make sure like you're running from a web view. So we tweak that user agent in order to tell, hey, this is the native app. Let me
Okay.
in. And we also make sure the Android bridge exists. It's not undefined. And this is a little bit of a trick. We namespace it because this happens when you're releasing apps over time. You release updates and you have new stuff. The moment you release a new update, maybe someone hasn't updated their app and we don't want them to break. So when we release, let's say, the copy to clipboard thing, we
Yeah.
check, is this native Android and this namespace exists in the Android world? And if it does, yeah, because we may be in a native Android, but we may not have that implementation out for everyone. Someone updated their app, someone hasn't
Okay.
updated their app in forever. So stuff
Okay.
like
So
that. These are just like, yeah, edge cases.
okay, cool. I sent you in Slack the link to the runtime. I don't know if you got 2 seconds to just pop it up on the screen here. Uh,
Which one, sorry?
it's I sent you a DM in Slack. We can
Okay,
maybe
let me
just
see.
paste that in there, and I believe I sent it. No, yeah, no, I sent
Mm-hmm.
it. Yeah, okay.
Okay, I
Maybe we
see
can
it.
just pull that up quickly and just kind of. I know some folks are
Mm-hmm.
visual, and I'll just see in the code too, and maybe zoom in once or twice just to get it a bit bigger for folks at home. Okay, so this is the runtime class, and Michael Cole, by the way, is one of our coworkers. Super awesome human being and pretty amazing developer. Um, yeah. Okay, so we just got a ES6 class here, or it's just ECMAScript now. It's not 6. It's just ES. But okay, so this is what you're talking about, checking for the native iOS or the native Android, and
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it's possible if they're not up to date, they even if they're on Android, they might not actually have that object, the bridge there. So, okay,
Yeah.
and then
So
if
yeah,
they
these are
don't,
some of the tricks. Yeah.
okay, so if we don't have the native like say I'm on Android and I don't have the native Android for whatever reason, the bridge because they're not up to date or something, um,
Yeah.
the fallback is just do the best you can in the web world, I guess, or
Yes, exactly. We have like multiple approaches to that,
okay,
and that's one of them. For example, let's say we we release the native video player, which is something that we're working here. This is
okay,
the PR that's out here for Dev iOS. Hopefully this will come out soon because we made
okay,
little bit of a big refactor. We're taking stuff out and moving stuff in, and basically this is the native video player. So let me show you real quick.
okay,
This is the PR running, and so we're trying to make the 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 video player work with native features, like the native video player inside the app. But we're browsing inside a web view, so we have to make these connections from inside the web view to
okay.
outside. So
So
let's
a lot
say
of
we
back and
release the
forth,
version that supports this. Sorry?
a lot of back and forth, I guess, between the native and
A
the
little
web
bit, a
view.
little bit. The idea is to make it um, just very standardized. It's a message. Um, I can show it right here a little bit, but um, podcast message, post message. Hmm.
Well, if you
This
can't
one
find
right
it,
here. So
we. Oh, you got it. Okay, cool.
yeah. So you're basically calling the post message. Hey, post this message. It has an action. So we always like, and this is all up for change in the future, but I think it's working pretty well. We send we send messages back and forth, but the message has an action name. So we send like this is load the audio, but then the other one is increase the volume or um,
Okay.
pause it, stuff like that. So you send the name of the message and some payload into it. So
Okay.
it's all like it's creating our own interface basically. So
Okay.
the thing is, if we release the new iOS app that supports video, but then let's say half the people have updated, half users haven't,
Okay.
then we are on a native world, but some apps have the support for these messages and some other don't. So this is where we're just always fall back to the web version. The problem with the
Yeah.
web version is we don't have as good picture in picture. When you have the podcast player, if you listen to a podcast in the native apps and you lock your screen, you'll get, at least in the iOS one, you get a little better view on the controls.
Yeah.
We could use a little improvement on the Android one. The problem with Android to me is it's not maybe that simple because the ecosystem is just so much broad. And let's say on Samsung's, you get a little wonky way of doing like the locked screen, older
Okay.
ones, I think at least.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, it gets a little trickier. And also, I'm not as experienced on Android as I am on iOS. So at
Okay.
least for experimentation, stuff like that, I tend to work a little faster on iOS. Um, but let me see if I got it right here. This is like a screen mirror of the phone. So
Okay.
this is not currently in the App Store. So if you
But you
go
can
into the
put it in the
video,
browser for
wanted
us
to
to
do a
see?
little bit of an sorry, what?
Are you mean you're gonna put it in the browser so we can see it mirroring, or
Can you see the screen,
I
or
just
is
see
it?
your web I just see your web browser right now, so maybe you need to share the
Oh,
I don't know if you're sharing your whole screen or just the web view.
that's weird. I thought I was sharing the screen. Can you see something on top of the browser? No.
No, just I just see the dev iOS native player PR up.
Okay.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
now I
Can you
see
see
it.
this?
Yeah,
Okay.
so
So this is
yeah.
yeah, this is dev on the native app. This is mirroring my phone right now. And the thing is, when you go into the videos right now, if you go into the native apps on iOS, you don't have the native experience.
Okay.
Pretty sure it doesn't. No, the PR is still up.
Yeah,
So I wanted to do a little inception and play this video. So
yeah.
this when I hit play, this is the native video player
Okay.
from native code. You're just instantiating a native player, but you also get picture in picture, which you don't get on let's say uh, on the web implementation. So
Yeah.
this is a little bit of the play that you get when you can have native stuff work on top of the app. So you can now watch a video and you're like reading other stuff, things like
Okay, yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
then
No, that's definitely a
same
better
thing with
experience.
podcasts. Exactly, exactly. On the web view, you don't get background audio playback, and you don't get certain like the artwork on like the podcast. If I play a podcast, I don't know if this will work. I think the moment I okay, let me play a podcast and see if it
Yeah.
works.
Because the podcast is native.
Stream-
That's actually an improvement I actually appreciated because I was trying
Yeah,
to dog food our player, but anytime I locked my
mhm,
phone when it was the web implementation, it just stopped. But now that we've got
exactly.
the native, it's way better. Okay, yeah.
Hmm.
So
So you
and
get
so
yeah,
all we're seeing here, it's this is really there's nothing you had to customize. You just had to pop in the URL of the podcast and it knew to load it, or or in terms of the native experience?
Yeah, basically this works in the podcast world and the JavaScript. The podcast is actually pretty interesting to me, maybe
Okay.
just to me, but it's pretty interesting because the the UI is still living inside the web view. This little player on the bottom, hold on, I
Yeah.
think you can still see it.
Yeah, no,
The
I
little
see it.
player on
It's
the
a
bottom, yeah, where you have the timer, the pause. So if I pause the audio, this is a JavaScript event that I'm making, but the event knows that I'm living in a web view, so it sends
okay.
the message outwards into the native code that's running the native APIs for podcasting, for audio
Oh,
playback and stuff.
and you get all
So
that for free.
yeah, you get all of that for free.
That's
But
that's that's pretty good.
that's the podcasting that's the bridging working. So you're sending a message through the bridge out, and then here comes the tricky part. You're playing outside the web view. So the native audio player, it's called AV player in
Okay.
iOS. That native that native API, you need to oops, RubyConf coming up.
Yeah, road trips are cool.
Um, yeah. So you're getting the tick every second. You have to send the message into the web view. Hey, another second has passed. Update the UI because this is all
Uh,
JavaScript. Well, this is just
okay,
HTML.
yeah.
So um yeah,
Because
if
is it
you Mhm.
yeah, just a question. So like the rotating uh podcast player in the web view, that's probably a CSS animation happening,
Yeah,
and so when you pause in the native, it has to come in to say to message
exactly.
the client side to say, "Hey, I need you to stop the animation because I pause." Well, or just call the pause in the native, sorry, in the web browser. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
no, that's
There's
pretty
still
cool.
tricks like that. There's small things, edge cases that we haven't fixed or getting perfectly. So that's something that's great, I think, of this stream that we can get people that if you find something bad or something not working right, where sometimes people open like an issue in the web repo, but we
Yeah,
have these native repos, which is kind of better to get the like the issue tracker in here.
yeah,
But in a general sense, yeah, if it's all a little bridging here and there and just playing around with native APIs and making sure the web is able to take advantage of that.
yeah,
And in the future, there's lots of things that we can do, and I wish we could. Well, no, I mean we're taking our time to make things well, but there's a lot of possibilities and opportunities here. Let's say the write a post. If I want to write a post,
yeah.
we could potentially make a fully native editor that works really well on a small screen like it's your phone
Okay.
and have that bridge in a way that you get like better scrolling or better like more native stuff or there's just a lot of opportunities in different areas. For now, I think the easiest or the clearest ones were the ones that we didn't have good access to the APIs. So the
Yeah,
podcast wasn't working well in the background. So let's tackle that with native APIs and make it better. But once we get to a really good base level, how about we enhance just the web experience in a general sense? So
okay, I
things like
gotcha.
that are interesting
Okay.
opportunities at least.
Yeah, and as you know, our code bases are open source. So, Christina, when you have a chance, if you can just paste in the repository, sorry, the repositories for the iOS and the Android apps, we can check those out again. For folks just who, because I know a few people came in a little later to the stream. uh, I, well, we're hitting almost 2 o'clock, so I'm thinking we should maybe shift over to talking about the Forum app a bit, or like the kind of like the future of what's happening in our mobile ecosystem. So as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, Forum's the software that powers dev. So Forum is community software that we're building out for just pretty much anybody. We already have some awesome clients out there. There's the Sneak community. There's a community club. Uh, we have one from an early adopter. I forget Lee's last name. Do you remember? It's I'm always seeing
Lee,
Slack
I
names
always
or like.
forget his last name too.
Anyway, I'm gonna call him Lee MMA because he has a mixed martial arts community that's based off of forum code base as
Hmm.
well. Um, uh, but yeah, so the future of what we're working on is building out communities for folks by creating this open source software, and we're generalizing things in the web-based world. So we have configuration so folks can set up, because everything initially was branded all dev. Stuff was hard coded for dev. We've pulled out, I think, most of that now, but there's the mobile experience, which is we have these two Android apps right now, but and I'm not familiar with a lot of what's been going on in this space. So, but we have what's called, is it called the Forum app, or what is it?
Yeah,
And you can also
let
stop
me.
sharing your mirror because we're getting your
Yeah,
text
true.
messages.
I just noticed that with the
It's all good.
um,
Yeah. So yeah, if you could
absolutely.
just talk a bit about that.
Well, the forum app is still not out. We're starting to roll out like some testing internally, but we're getting there. The idea, the big picture is that basically if it works on a web view and it has this enhanced interactive like way of getting into like good native APIs,
Yeah.
you get out of the box, you create a new forum instance, and out of the box you get all the caching, all the like the great stuff from the web repo
Okay.
and from the basically the forum project. You get it out of the box on a web view. So we abstracted a little bit that approach, and we are not, at least we're not doing a lot of fuss about it yet. It's very recent because we're getting there, but all the releases, this is a new repo. The
Okay.
I think you can see it now, but it's the web view repo. So now let me show you the difference in the code. We can now make this a forum web view instead of a WK web view. We
Oh, okay.
abstract it. Yeah, we abstracted all the ways of like customizing the web view. So uh, in the future, still, we'll iterate and get better with the capabilities of this, but um, gradually people can like have their own app, or we can have a custom app for multiple forums or whatever you
Okay.
want. If you have your own custom app, but you want to embed your own for if you want to embed your own community in your own native app that does something else. Let's say the calculator app that used to track your background
Yeah.
location to tell you if someone else is doing math near you. You have
Yeah.
a
I need my
community of
math friends.
people doing maths. Yeah. So stuff like that. You already have your native app. How about you
Okay.
embed your community in there? It's just like a lot of to me that I see it from this angle. I think it's like there's a lot of opportunity here, but we're getting there slowly. We're not doing like a big fuss about it, but it's all the releases. At least I've tagged them as pre-release.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's basically exposing an interaction, an interface where we can like have this back and forth. We can say, okay, someone requested an external site. What do we do with it? Well,
Yeah.
it's up to you. It depends on how your app wants to do it.
Okay.
And
But just yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of
basically creating
stuff.
some nice abstractions, basically.
Exactly. Exactly. The same road path, or what's it called? Roadmap is expected to come with Android 2. It's still
Okay.
a little earlier there, so we haven't released it yet. But basically, it's the same thing. And like in the native app, that's currently out there, there's like there's a lot of code that um, manages specific things depending on dev and whatnot. So this abstraction kind of makes it way simpler. I think. Let me see. What am I sharing? My screen?
Yeah, your native, the native video player PR is still up,
Okay. Let me see.
but you did have the other thing open a second ago.
Okay.
Okay, this is
So
Xcode we're looking at.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
Do you mind just zooming in once or twice if you can? Just
yeah.
for folks at home
Absolutely.
to see the screen. Yeah, perfect.
So basically, Um, let's go through the quickly the steps of how you develop with Forem Native because that's a cool thing, but it's also an abstraction. You're not used to this. So whenever I was developing this podcast interaction, not only you have to have your own forum that you're writing code in the back end, but
Okay.
also writing code in the app. So they have to talk. So
Yeah.
when I showed you the mirroring of the app in my phone, that is using this URL right here. It's you're just using dev2.
Okay.
But if I like, we have this environment variable that you can change it here, edit
Yeah.
scheme, and then you go into forgot where it is, but you just make it have a local URL. So you have a local development environment of Forem, and you spin up your own Forem, and then you, of course, hack your way around the code, and now you have
Okay.
to make this app work with the local environment. That's a little tricky. The simulator works well with localhost,
Okay.
but on a real device, you have to run through a few other hoops because your device can't access your localhost in your computer. I actually posted a few things when I was learning and doing my own thing here with the like getting my feet wet with all this. That there's a few different ways. Like in your local area network, you can
Yeah.
have this cool project called. Well, I definitely don't know
Is
how
it
to
ngrok
pronounce
or?
this, but it's
Oh,
chip.io.
okay.
Oh no, is it dead?
Uh-oh.
Oh wow. It's dead. It was built by Basecamp, but yeah, no
Okay.
wonder it's not working. I've been using ngrok, which is not
Okay.
live
Yeah.
right now because I don't have my local environment working. But with
Yeah.
ngrok, you can just have you get HTTPS too, and that's the trickiest part because some web features like I don't know, are you looking at Chrome? I always have to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm at Chrome. Yeah. Like I know
Okay,
service
cool.
workers require HTTPS. That's one
Yeah.
web thing for sure.
Yeah, not only that, and also some navigator, some API, some web APIs will only work on HTTPS.
Okay.
And it's like you spend an hour and you're like, why is this not working? I can see it and I can like click on it and it's not working. And it's that HTTPS support that you need. But
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
some hoops that you have to run through. But that's the general way of working with the app. I mean,
Okay.
if you have your local environment, you can just share it or you can use, let me see. Oh,
Yeah. I found
you
ngrok's
can
been
just
pretty good in the past when I've used it.
mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And
In a general sense, yeah, you can use dev, you can open this MMA live, or you can open any other of the new communities that are coming up from Forum,
yeah.
and that's the objective, like getting there into a generalized web view that can just give you native support of really cool features, and it's all
Okay.
native, it's all Swift, and in Android it's Kotlin, but yeah, you get some cool
Yeah.
stuff out of the box from
Yeah. And
from any forum instance.
I just wanted to stop you there. So the
Yeah.
question. So you mentioned Swift. So the project, I believe, like we were talking before the stream, you said it started off in Swift because like I said, I haven't done any native app development, but or mobile native app development. So there used to be like Cocoa. Is Objective C Cocoa? I don't know.
Objective C is the language, yes. Cocoa
Oh,
is the
okay.
framework for, yeah, uh, yeah. It's
Okay.
the framework on top of, yeah, the Apple frameworks for UI and all.
Okay. And so we're not using that. We're using Swift. Swift is a
Mhm.
language, I believe you said, that was created by Apple and it's since been open sourced. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. Swift is open source and it is like powered by, I don't know what's the right word, but like Apple is the patron of Swift in a way, so they support
Okay.
their development and things like that, kind of like Go for Google, that they developed Go internally and then they open sourced it and things like that.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, I
So
believe the project it looks like it started in 2018,
yeah.
but yeah, I'm pretty sure it started with Swift. About that time, you had maybe Swift 2 or 3, maybe. We'll have to ask Ben, but yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we've got Swift being used as the language, and then this is something I was confused about because you had mentioned Swift UI. I just assumed when I hear Swift with iOS development, I just assumed like Swift UI was people just saying that's the UI part of Swift, but it's actually a separate project. Is that correct?
It is. Yeah, it is. And you're right. It's a little confusing, and I hadn't thought about it until today that it is a little confusing. But Swift, yeah, Swift is the programming language, but Swift UI is the new, more recent framework that Apple developed for more declarative UI development.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, I believe, well, I don't know how to compare it with React because I don't want to make a analogy there that's not really true.
He
I'm
said
not
it. It's.
React. Yeah, React is my weakest point, and front end JavaScript is my weakest area. But um,
But
definitely is way different. You basically here we use storyboards and you declare your UI in a different way. In Swift
okay.
UI, it's all code. You basically say this is a view, and inside the code, it's very declarative and it's all in programmatic. So you don't have an interface builder. You don't have this thing where you drag drop and move things around. You have your code, and from the code that you declare, you
Okay.
kind of portray the preview of what your app will look like. It's a little difficult. I mean, I'll be honest. I have gone into it a little bit, but it's a change in the way you have to think.
Okay.
There are frameworks to do that on UIKit, which is the normal way we've done things for a while.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's a little difficult to just hit the ground running with something like a big project. So definitely, I think it's the future, and I think it's great because I actually am a user of those frameworks that kind of replicate this. You
Okay.
create your UI and your code, and you say this has to be this tall, make this match with a certain offset and stuff like that in the code. So you don't have a UI builder, but the Swift UI project is still very, very recent. So in a way, it's a little um I don't want to say it's in diapers because it's getting more and more support and more and stuff, but it's way better, but maybe that's a personal opinion. So yeah,
Okay.
I
Well,
mean, in a
I
way,
guess we could
it's
say
cool.
they've changed the diaper a few times at least, not just one diaper, because that's
Yeah,
probably.
it is potty trained for sure. No, yeah, no patronizing here, but just yeah, it's getting there. It's getting there, and like some new stuff for iOS, you have to use SwiftUI, I believe. I haven't done it yet. I haven't created a widget. There are some of the
Okay.
new things that have come up with iOS, but I believe that in order to code a widget, you have to have SwiftUI, or at least that has to be in SwiftUI. Not
Okay.
100% sure, but that's what I believe so far. And it is interoperable. There is interoperability. Oh my God, those are tough ones.
Yeah,
But
that was a tongue twister.
instantiate and interoperability. But yeah, basically you can have Swift UI and UI Kit in the same project and have them coexist.
Okay.
But yeah, when you're building a proof of concept and the first steps into a new project, you kind of want to go with what your strong area is and where you're comfortable.
Yeah. No, the code base looks really interesting. Like I said, I haven't done mobile native development, but Swift looks pretty interesting. And
Hmm.
if we kind of shift over to, I know you're less familiar. Well, yeah, I mean, you obviously do dev in Android as well, but as you mentioned, you kind of feel a little more comfortable in iOS land. But uh,
Hmm.
Kotlin is I can't remember what Android apps were written in prior to Kotlin. Was it just straight up Java or
Yeah.
okay? So Kotlin is kind of I don't remember when the language came out, but I guess it's got similar ideas to Swift in terms of just facilitating app development
Hmm.
for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. The Objective-C is the Java of Kotlin, but actually, I would say it's the other way around. I believe I
Okay.
read when I was going into learning Kotlin, um, actually Kotlin predates Swift, and some of the
Oh, no
cool
way.
things in Swift come from Kotlin, or at least are very similar. So you don't know if they took it from there or it may just have come up with the same thing. But
Okay. That's
yeah, it's
interesting.
pretty
That's
cool. Some of the optionals, they call it in, maybe there are some here. The question marks, basically. Those are similar things. When you're casting or when you have something, this means it can be nil
yeah.
or it can be an actual thing. So you have to be careful when they're optional. But these are all
Yeah.
compile time things that you take care of. So you know whether or not this will be there or not. If it doesn't have a question mark, it will be there.
Yeah.
So the compiler
That's
will tell you, yeah, you can work around this. But if it's not, you have to take these, like, if it's actually a thing, okay, now inside this if, it's actually a thing.
Yeah, so
So,
you have to guard against things. This is I did
mhm.
C# before, so it's a typed language as
Okay.
well. But for the web developers on the stream, if you've done any TypeScript, same kind of idea. You have an optional parameter, so you want to guard against it. So you need to do some kind of checks. Otherwise, the compiler will complain. I imagine in Swift does it complain as well? Like if it's optional and you don't guard against it, will it still let you run that code and just break at runtime, or do you need the guard? Like, does the compiler complain?
You do need it. Like if you, it will give you an error. For example, if I try to use this sender, um,
Like right there, it would
oof,
probably complain,
there's
eh?
this exclamation mark.
Okay, yeah,
So the
TypeScript has the same
exclamation
thing.
mark, yeah.
You're
So
you're
things
saying
like
I
that, you
know it
rather,
exists.
yeah, exactly. I know it
Okay, yeah,
exists. The compiler says, okay, if you know what you're doing, go ahead, but it may break.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
So
yeah,
actually, these concepts are, yeah, they're very much from a statically typed language, just like you mentioned. C Sharp has kind of a way of doing this, but actually, it's funny because Kotlin and iOS or Kotlin and Swift have the um, almost same syntax, where you have the question mark or you have
okay,
the exclamation mark. But
okay, cool.
yeah.
Um, what was I gonna say? Something regarding the types, but oh yeah. Well, I guess yeah, no, this I mean this looks familiar. I mean because I've done a bunch of I've done type languages, so like I feel like I could
Mhm.
jump into this, and even though I don't know the language per se, I feel like I could get kind of comfortable in here pretty quick. There's some
Mhm.
syntax differences, like I see func instead of function, but
Yeah.
it's got this C like syntax language,
Hmm.
so it
Kotlin is
looks
more fun
okay.
because the functions are actually fun. That's how you declare them.
Okay. Okay, nice, nice. Cool. So, so in your experience, like both Kotlin and Swift have uh, they kind of have similar. Well, Kotlin's a type language as well, I imagine. I've never touched any of it,
Yeah.
but so it's similar to that degree, I guess, and it's class based as well. So object
Mhm.
oriented. So you have all those same principles like overrides, public, private, that kind of stuff. And okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this yeah, this code looks like it's definitely something on my to-do list. Like I think I'm gonna have to maybe during one of our cooldown periods, I'm gonna have to sync up with you and just, work on some stuff, or maybe we can do a little bit of a deep dive into some of this stuff because it
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, I've been focusing mainly on front end, but like I feel like mobile, I mean, there's so many aspects of front end, but like I feel like mobile app development definitely falls under there. It's just different development,
Yeah, it's a different type of
uh
front end. Yeah.
but yeah, no, this looks like it would be fun to
Mhm.
play in. So
Yeah, the
cool.
Swift language is pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of fuss around um like some machine learning or like in the general sense the um performance of a compiled language in um like processing process intensive tasks, like very stuff like that, like in a way that you hear in the same way that you hear Rust and Go are very efficient and very like performance wise efficient.
Okay.
Swift kind of falls into that too, in the sense that you compile it and it's like an executable or whatever. You're working with compiled uh, languages, and I know there's ways to do that on let's say Python or Ruby or stuff like that, but
Okay.
basically you get like a little more closer to the metal here in those terms. It's not an interpreted language.
Okay, cool. um I'm gonna paste the repo links in again for the apps. I I can't. I know you were showing the repo before for the Forem app, but is that still internal only, or is that publicly available if people want to dig into that?
Yeah, this one's open. Yeah, too. The
Okay,
WebView iOS.
okay. I'm gonna go
Android is
find
still
that
not
repo.
out there, but
Okay, and it's Forem WebView iOS. Okay, let me just pop that into the chat there. Um,
mm,
no, this has been really good because there's just a lot of this stuff I wasn't aware about. I mean, I think the high level I had was we have native apps that embed the website to some degree. Um, but I think I think it makes sense the approach we've taken because we are primarily a content based application. But I like where the discussions like Ben and yourself have had, and probably some others on the team too, about just like putting in those native aspects where you really get the bang for the buck, like the native player for the podcast. That's like as soon as we had that, like I was using it more often because typically I'm on Overcast because they have a
mhm.
native app too. But the web view, sorry, not the web view. The once video, the native comes in, that'll be a game changer too because like the picture in picture and all that stuff. And I like the idea that you were suggesting. It's nothing guaranteed, but of potentially having a better editor for a native experience. I think that makes a lot of sense too. And I guess it could even be something where like the web view's loaded, but then the native editor just takes over the whole screen. So like we don't have to worry about like visually, like kind of plopping it in somehow on the web view or whatever.
Exactly.
So no, that's cool. Okay, I'm gonna just get the link for the Forum web view iOS. I'm gonna post that in the chat. Um, we're getting close to 2:30. We usually wrap up around 2:30 because at least in my short experience of streaming, which has been since like about April, I think like people in school, when you're in an auditorium for
Yeah.
more than an hour and a half, people start
Mhm.
to kind of die off a bit.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna post in your links again, so folks can give you a follow on
Mhm.
Twitter and also uh, your dev profile. Um, I
There's
guess
actually
yeah. So
something I can share with you, like right before we wrap up, is like
oh
kind of
yeah, yeah, no, we still got.
uh-huh, the
No, I was gonna say we
kind of
still
like
got
the
some time. No, for
obstacles
sure.
or challenges that we have, because yeah, it's not all opportunities, but there are some small challenges, or small.
Oh yeah, no,
There are
for
some
sure. Don't
challenges.
don't just show us the green pastures. Show us the cow poop too.
Yeah, yeah. In this world, in the native world, things like Swift UI, since we haven't used our apps, like we're looking for feedback in general, if you
Okay.
ever use it, or like it's still very early. So in a general sense, we're still researching and getting there, but this is kind of like the big picture in a way. And
Okay.
also, since we have so much front end stuff, um, you're also the go-to front end guy here in the company too. So in a way, some of these challenges will eventually come into your court too, because, for example,
Okay.
we were discussing the other day something about the way we share stuff, and the way we share stuff is very native. No, sorry, it's very web based, and there are
Okay.
some really great web APIs that let us do more native sharing from within the phones
Yeah, yeah, for
or
sure.
the tablets. So, for example, if um if we want, like, and this is like a feature request maybe. So um I guess from what I gathered the other day, we could have a React or Preact component that, um, let's say, shuffles between what to present depending on the platform you're running. So
Yeah, for sure.
let me give you a quick example. If you go into Dev tool and you go, for example, have you ever contributed to Dev? And I
Yeah.
want to share it. So I have these share up options right here.
Yeah.
Um, we we could have this component wrapper that says, okay, there's these five options, but the fifth is marked to only run on certain ways on certain platforms, and the other ones are meant to run on any platform, and then one other one only on web. So those
Okay.
small
Okay. Gotcha.
things are tricky, but since we have this runtime model already of how to check whether or not we're running on one way or another,
Yeah.
it would be a great way to like have this component that we can reuse for in different areas. This is just one area. So in other areas,
Yeah.
let's say right here, if I want to share this one, maybe I want to add a new one, and this is a PR that we haven't been able to get like really out of the door, but something like more native stuff like this that
Yeah.
depends on the platform you're running. So
No, for
things
sure.
like
That's
that
definitely a good
are
candidate.
some
Yeah.
of the challenges we have. But yeah, looking into the future, there's like lots of opportunities and these challenges where we can use front end JavaScript code to manage different ways.
Oh no, for sure. No, those are great ideas for there, and yeah, no, I mean, I mean, obviously there's still code branching, like am I Android or whatever, but if you can abstract that away into a component or some higher level component that calls whichever component we need, I definitely think that makes sense because I think one of the goals we try to do on the project as well is, I mean, abstracting things for sure, but because we're an open source project, I think we try, we still got work to do, but we try to facilitate, contributors contributing. So stuff
Yeah.
like this would definitely help, whatever we can do to assist a contributor, whether, that's part of the reason why, like, I mean, like many companies, we're building a design system out so people are using the reusable things, so that people aren't trying to reinvent these things if they're doing like a UI change. Same thing in the back end,
Hmm.
we put certain things in place. So it's no, I'm excited about all this stuff. Obviously, Forem is still pretty new. I can't remember when we announced it. Was it like September, or maybe it was late August?
Yeah,
I
maybe
honestly
even a
can't remember.
little, yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
in that ballpark.
So it's, yeah, no, I'm just excited. I know we got a lot of work to do, but I'm like super excited about all the stuff we have coming in the pipe. It's just, you know, we got tons of dev to do, but to me this seems like a lot of interesting, like, development and problems to solve.
Cool.
So I don't know. I'm pretty stoked. Um, yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. I
These
guess
repos
we'll.
don't get sorry, these repos are not as fast paced as Forum. Like that's just like a little small like footnote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since we have this much research and refactoring, it's definitely a different pace. Forum is like such a big repo and such a big project, and people can contribute in the front end, in the back end, and different levels. So
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, in a
And I.
general sense, the entire ecosystem is really promising, at least in our
Yeah.
eyes.
Okay. So and I guess since you touched on those repos, they're like, not that they don't get as noticed, but obviously the forum code base is like kind of what powers a lot of these things. So in terms of, if I wanted to contribute to the iOS project or uh, the Android project, how I honestly don't know what the state of documentation is for like getting set up or contributing. Is it, are we still working on it, or is it not too bad right now, or?
In general sense, it's not too bad. The problem is this barrier for entry that these concepts are like the fact that I can share with you this. Okay, we have this bridge and this thing. Maybe that's a great area where we can improve our documentation for like and this is fully technical documentation for
Yeah.
anyone that wants to start hacking into the project.
Okay.
But in a general sense, I think it's pretty well documented how to contribute. If you already know native coding for either iOS or Android, you can go into the contributing documentation, the READMEs, and you'll get started. Maybe you'll
Okay.
need to take a second and say, okay, this is a web view. Where is the code? And then you realize, okay, it's mostly the web app that's running in here. And then you,
Okay.
you you slowly get there. In a general sense, you can always open an issue. Documentation contributions are awesome. There always
Okay.
are.
Yeah. Yeah. For
And
sure.
mhm.
No, I know. I definitely want to dig into some of this, like I said. So I'm definitely gonna hit you up at some point during one of our cooldown periods, I think. Um,
Mhm.
I,
Absolutely.
uh, I'm probably saying the obvious, but for those looking to contribute to the iOS repository, you do need a Mac because it requires Xcode, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
For iOS development, you're locked in. It's only
Okay.
Apple. But
Yeah. So I'm just throwing that out there, even if that is obvious to a lot of people. I'm just mentioning that. For the Android experience, we'll kind of wrap up with this, but if you wanted to contribute to that, what do we use? Do we use Android Studio? I've heard of that, or do we use any kind of editor?
yeah, Android Studio in general, yeah.
Okay, and
Hmm.
that's available on Mac, Linux, or Windows.
I Linux is the only one I'm not sure,
Okay,
but um, yeah,
but
I
definitely
think
definitely Windows and Mac though.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. All right. Well,
Hmm.
like I said, I posted Fernando's links there. Oh, they're up a little. Yeah, no, they're still visible in the chat. They haven't gone all the way up. So you can give him a follow on Twitter and Dev. He's FDoxyZ everywhere, I guess. Every time I see it, I always say Foxy Diz. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know why I read it like that, but anyways. Yeah, so I just wanted to thank you for coming on today. We dug into a bunch of stuff. I know we couldn't go super deep in some things just given time constraints, but uh, I definitely think like you were talking about in terms of contributing and stuff, like talking about those things near the end for the iOS and stuff. The more technical stuff, maybe we could do another like a deeper dive, like one that's maybe specific to iOS on another stream, maybe another one for Android. And yeah, the repo links are up there, so definitely check those out. Um, it is open source, so if you see issues in the documentation when you're installing stuff, feel free to throw up a PR. You can hit up anybody on the team. Fernando is obviously our specialist in mobile, but you can contact anybody on the team. We're an open source team. And before we leave, Pablo is just asking in the chat. Um, yeah, so the reason why we use web views, Pablo, is we're primarily a content-based website, and I think that was the main decision, right, Fernando? Yeah. So that's pretty much why we have the web views, and we build uh, native around that where it makes sense. Um, and yeah, and that's why we're not using something like React Native as well. Who knows, in the future things could change, but for now that's the road we've taken. So I want to thank you again, Fernando, and check out his links. Give him a follow. Check out the repos. Don't forget to give the Twitch stream a follow so you can know when we're up to stuff. It's twitch.tv/thepracticaldev. And I'll just pop in my links too. You can follow me on Twitter, Dev, and or my website, wherever. Uh, Thanks again for everybody who popped in, and we'll be back next week. We're gonna be here next Wednesday with Swix, aka Sean Wang. We're gonna be talking about Svelte as well as some themes from his book, The Coding Career Handbook. So we will see you all next week. Take care, everybody.
Sweet.